This week marks 10 years since the city of Flint switched its water source to the Flint River, starting the Flint water crisis, and ABC 12 is chronicling the people who brought the lead issue to the forefront.
Tonight we have the story of a Flint mother's search for answers for her children and the city's children that would finally expose the truth about Flint's water.
But you can still see the sediment.
It's aged and dented. The label is long gone. Most of the water has evaporated. But 10 years after a Flint mother held up this bottle of water taken from her tap, it still holds the truth she fought to make everyone see.
What do you think of when you look at that?
It brings back some very bad memories, some infuriating memories. Being in a meeting and holding this up and being called a liar.
January 21st, 2015, 9 months after the emergency manager switched Flint's water source from Detroit's water system to the Flint River. Flint residents erupt at a packed meeting at City Hall. They were breaking out.
She then broke out all over her body from this water.
And fearing what was in their drinking water. But experts from the city and state were there to convince those drinking, cooking, and bathing with Flint water that it was safe. LeeAnne Walters held up this bottle of brown water that came from her tap. But that wasn't enough to convince the city of Flint and Department of Environmental Quality that something was wrong. They didn't believe her. A moment captured in this picture that a decade later, LeeAnne will never forget.
Look on my face, that's what was being said to me.
That was not your water?
Yes, that I was a liar and stupid and that was not my water.
LeeAnne wasn't a scientist, a doctor, or water expert. She was a mother and knew whatever was coming out of her faucet was hurting her family.
She started screaming. It was a blood-curdling scream for me. What the hell's going on? Walk in, and my daughter's standing there holding a clump of her hair, 18 years old. That's how our family lived.
And you lost your eyelash?
I lost my eyelashes.
10 years later, LeeAnne's eyelashes still haven't grown back.
They're very sparse. They're brittle. And so that's why I wear fake eyelashes.
In 2015, her then 3-year-old twin boys started getting red bumps after baths, and her whole family was breaking out in rashes that still linger.
The boys still get them between their toes and around their ankles. Maya and I still get on my shins. He still gets his on his side, on his planks, like his sides, and that's never changed.
Neither would LeeAnne's search for answers. She began researching as only a mother would to protect her children and the city's children.
We realized we weren't alone. And how do we make them listen?
LeeAnne urged the city to test her water. She would get a chilling phone call from the plant supervisor, Mike Glasgow, warning her to keep her children away from it.
Don't drink it. Don't use it. Don't use it to brush your teeth.
Just as the city of Flint was saying the water was safe, LeeAnne would learn hers had an alarmingly high lead level and would become an expert on the terrifying and heartbreaking effects lead exposure can have on young children. Irreversible damage like lower IQs and problems with attention spans and behavior.
I cried because of the exposure list to lead, what it can do to a child.
There's no safe level of lead. But in 2015, the federal action level where corrective action must be taken was 15 parts per billion. The first test at LeeAnne's house came back 7 times that. The next month was even more disturbing. Additional tests would average 2,500 ppb, and the highest,
2.5 times that of hazardous waste.
LeeAnne's family had been using bottled water for months, but it was too late. All of them were exposed, and her twin son Gavin, with a compromised immune system, had lead poisoning.
I remember the mommy boiling the water and all that stuff
on the stove.
Gavin and Garrett were 2 years old when the water crisis started, and they remember waiting for their mom to warm bottled water on the stove for their baths. They don't remember a time in their lives where they haven't used water out of a bottle.
There might be something bad in the water, so you got to check it.
Only use the water to shower and wash your hands.
Both boys struggled with hand-eye coordination, memory loss, and signs of ADHD. Gavin would face serious developmental delays. There was a time he was a foot shorter than his twin brother. But during the past 10 years, LeeAnne and her husband, Dennis, have done everything possible to get them the therapy and support they need to rise above the effects of lead exposure.
Watching them be delayed because somebody made a stupid decision sucks. You're going to be stunted in growth. You're going to have issues. You've been to speech therapists. You've been to occupational therapists. You've broken bones. You're not growing right. Guess what? That's your life, and we're not treating them as a victim. We are survivors, period.
During the water crisis, LeeAnne had tried desperately to get her boys tested for lead, but says her doctor refused. And the years and investigation following, LeeAnne says she would learn why after the Freedom of Information Act revealed emails between her doctor's office and the city of Flint.
Finding out that the emergency manager's assistant was my son's doctor's wife, and the reason why my kids were not treated properly, and they refused to test my kids.
LeeAnne says one of the most hurtful moments of the crisis would be reaching out to Flint's then mayor, Dane Walling, who had told her to come if anything changed.
So when Gavin's doctor called to tell us about the lead poisoning April 2nd, I immediately went down to his office. And I was told he would call me Monday, and Monday never came.
Instead of meeting with Mayor Walling, LeeAnne says she was sent to the legal department and asked to fill out a damage claim form.
How do I put a price tag on my child's life? You can put $1 million in there. We're going to review your claim.
The city of Flint would then hook up garden hoses from LeeAnne's house to her neighbor's house to provide water for LeeAnne's family.
So today is April 16th.
LeeAnne documented it with a home video showing the hose stretched between their homes.
I just received a release from the city of Flint that in order for them to pay for my portion of the lead pipe that they assured me that they were going to replace, I have to sign a release stating that they are not responsible.
It went on for 5 weeks.
When we refused to sign the whole harmless agreement, that was one of the threats that was made, is that because, there was high levels of lead coming into my house, that they could remove my children from the house.
The city and state would blame LeeAnne's plumbing, and through it all kept assuring the community Flint's water was safe.
It got to the point with me going to city council meetings that I had to use somebody else's name to go up to speak. They didn't like the questions I was asking. Boy, did they not know what they were in for after that.
She would take her fight to the Environmental Protection Agency. Miguel Del Toro would help her uncover a bombshell.
I had gotten all the reports from the water department. I was teaching myself about water and was trying to figure out the chemical makeups and how much has to go in where. I wasn't finding anything for corrosion controls.
So she called Miguel to help her understand the chemicals.
And he was like, no. You have to be missing something. Read me everything that's there. He's like, nope, go to the next one. And he's like, how many months do you have? I'm like, a year's worth. He was like, oh my God, they're not using corrosion controls.
Without that federally mandated treatment, Flint's river water was so corrosive, the aging pipes were leaching unsafe levels of lead into the city's water supply. When Miguel questioned it, emails released by the state show at the time MDEQ engineer Steve Bush assured the EPA Flint was using proper corrosion control. We would later learn they were not.
They were in game mode to make sure they kept face, everything was fine, I was more crazy than ever. If you look at the FOIAs, they were trying to figure out ways to come after me as far as like my plumbing.
Miguel would visit LeeAnne's home and determine all of her interior plumbing was plastic and could not be the source of the high lead levels. He would test the service line the city removed and find a portion was galvanized iron pipe, and a lead service line was linking her house to the water main.
That fateful day of just calling to ask a simple question turned into something none of us expected. He'd answer it honestly, and from that, that's what led to figuring out what the problem was.
That was April, 1 year after the switch, and the state still did nothing.
For the cost of, I was told, a $75,000 machine and like $100 a day, this all could have been avoided.
The city continued to maintain the water was safe, but LeeAnne put her 2 boys in a wagon and began walking door to door, warning people about lead poisoning.
Nobody has a right to hurt people's children, and people had a right to know.
The twins remember riding in that wagon and now realize just how brave their mother was.
Very, very cool. Inspiring, actually, because she's helping people.
And some of her neighbors tell her those warnings made a life-saving difference.
I have neighbors that, to this day will tell you their children, they had miscarriages during that time. And it was me going over and talking to them that they chose not to drink the water. And they will tell you their children are here because they listened.
10 years later, LeeAnne and her family are still working to protect others.
Instead of letting my children see me get angry and give up, it was showing them that you have to persevere through it because this mattered.
Sharing their story in classrooms like this one at U of M Ann Arbor.
There's another Flint right around the corner, so policies need to change. They need to be upheld. People need to quit cheating. There's plenty of things.
Pipes need to be replaced.
And the pipes need to be replaced.
They are still fighting for justice in a civil lawsuit against those she says are responsible for poisoning her children. And like so many across the city of Flint, they are still waiting for someone to be held accountable.
My kids, my life, our lives are forever altered, but people lost their family members, their loved ones. And to me, like that and the miscarriages and the stillbirths, that's not okay. And all these people just get to walk away from it. Sorry, that is the hardest pill for me to swallow.
And hearing all the things that she went through after we learned that, yes, she was right. And the things they tried to say about her or do to her, it's just amazing how strong she was.
You forget how long their struggle was to be heard finally by everybody that they complained to, even us.
Right.
In a way, as far as
no one believed her. She, you know, people call her now a hero, and she says she's just a mother, very stubborn mother, who wanted to make sure that what happened to her family never happens again.